Welcome to Storm Watch here at the Weather Channel, and we are following the progress of Tropical Storm Barry that has now moved onshore here in the Florida Panhandle. You can see that blob of convection still going on, and as the system moves onshore, we expect it to weaken in terms of the winds, but it still could be a major rainmaker over the next several days. These are the coordinates as of 1 a.m. Central. I hold in my hands the 2 a.m. Central Time Advisory. As of 2 a.m. now, the center about 20 miles north-northeast of Valparaiso, Florida, moving north at 8 miles an hour. Top winds now at 65 miles an hour with a central pressure at about 990 millibars. And that position, if you're following along at home as far as latitude and longitude, 30.8 north, 86.4 west. Now, we've also seen some changes to the hurricane watches and warnings. In fact, the hurricane warning now has been downgraded to a tropical storm warning from Apalachicola westward to Fort Walton Beach. The hurricane warning has been discontinued west of Fort Walton Beach, so that's certainly some good news. And the tropical storm warning has been discontinued east of Apalachicola. So now basically we're only looking at a tropical storm warning from Apalachicola to Fort Walton Beach. That is all that is left, and we'll be updating these maps shortly. This just came in off the printer. I literally took it off the printer and walked on air with it. Here's a look at what's going on now. We can see that center of circulation has now pushed onshore. Still some fairly heavy rain to the north and also heading over to the southeast side. A big batch of rain coming over Apalachicola heading up toward Tallahassee right now. So we're really going to be seeing quite a lot in the course of the rainfall over the next couple of days. There's the tropical storm force winds. We'll be modifying this also as we go through the night. Another problem we're contending with, though, is still the threat of severe weather. Tornado watch in effect here across the Panhandle until 7 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We've not received any reports of tornadoes. That's some good news, but still, you need to be on the lookout for them. If you are headed off to bed here, click on that weather alert radio over to alert mode in case the tornado should spin up. Now, you notice that our forecast swath does take it northwestward into Mississippi and Alabama over the next couple of days. That's because of the upper-level wind pattern that's developing. Through the daytime hours here on Monday, still flood watches, most of Alabama, southwestern Georgia, and the Panhandle of Florida, but would not be at all surprised if we see some of these watches shifting westward over the next day or so. Here's why. Looking at the water vapor imagery, which is a good indicator of upper-level wind flow here across the United States, notice this big clockwise motion across the Great Lakes. That's an upper-level ridge that is building here across the Great Lakes and the Ohio River Valley. That is turning the winds at the upper levels of the atmosphere from east to west in the path of what it will soon be what's left of Tropical Storm Barry, and we think that's going to draw the system and all the moisture associated with it to the west-northwest, and that could mean some big problems here in the lower Mississippi Valley and perhaps parts of the Tennessee Valley in terms of potential for flooding over the next couple of days. We'll have more on Barry coming up here at the top of the hour. First, a look into the rest of the tropics. Pleased to report relatively quiet. There is a wave coming across the Atlantic. It lost a lot of its convection over the last 24 to 36 hours, but still, this time of the year, we're getting into the season where Cape Verde storms are more common, the storms that form here off the coast of Africa, so we need to watch this as it makes its progress westward across the Atlantic. We're making some progress westward ourselves into the eastern Pacific. Here we are all quiet, some scattered convection, but nothing that is going to spin up, it looks like, over the next day or so. So we leave the tropics now, return to the U.S. We've seen the coming ashore of Barry, also some very wet weather and some stormy weather still going on here across the plains of eastern Colorado at this hour. Looking at the potential for thunderstorms here through the overnight, well, we could be seeing some isolated severe in the Four Corners area and still a threat of some severe weather in the Florida Panhandle with what's left of Barry. The other big story for the day tomorrow, more heat in the center of the nation. We'll cover it all in Weather Center next.
Property owners, if weeds and brush are taking over your land, at last there is a solution. The amazing DR Field and Brush Mower can reclaim overgrown parts of your property with less work than you ever dreamed possible. Now, if you've ever tried to clear an overgrown field or ditch with a handheld brush cutter or a shaky sickle bar mower, you know they're exhausting to use. Take hold of a DR Field and Brush Mower, though, and you've got a whole different story. The DR knocks over brush and saplings up to 1 inch thick and chops most everything it cuts, so there's no tangle of vegetation to trip over or to pick up. So why let weeds and brush take over? Call now for complete details about the amazing new DR Field and Brush Mower. Call toll-free 1-800-628-0200 for your big free package all about the amazing DR all-terrain field and brush mower, plus special savings now in effect. That's 1-800-628-0200 for free DR details.
Take back your power, babies. Call me now.
There's no way he's going to come back.
Honey, you don't need him back.
Oh, but I want him back. I love him. Is there any chance?
I love you to death, but I am not going to lie to you. He is not coming back this time.
Expect fair skies Wednesday through Friday with temperatures in the 90s on Wednesday.
Here's a look at the tough time Tropical Storm Barry brought to Panama City, Florida. The rough wind and the driving rain made it extremely hazardous for anyone forced to go outside. Although the storm will weaken now that it's made its way on shore, it could still bring another 10 inches of rain to some areas across the southeast. Here's the very latest that we have on Tropical Storm Barry, and it's still packing quite a punch. As of the 4 o'clock advisory, it has roughly centered about 20 miles north of Crestview, Florida, again working its way over land at this point. It's packing winds of 65 miles per hour, and we do know that tropical storm force winds may extend out well over 100 miles from the center of circulation, so definitely some very squally, very rough conditions occurring over parts of the southeast as Tropical Storm Barry continues to move to the north-northwest. Although later on today, we think this tropical system will eventually turn more to the northwest over the next 24 hours or so. At this point, tropical storm warnings continue from Fort Walton Beach all the way back through Apalachicola, Florida. So again, some very squally, very choppy conditions throughout this region. Now, along with that, too, oftentimes when tropical systems do make landfall, they can spin off some tornadoes. So we may have to watch out for some threatening conditions and severe weather for parts of the southeast. We have a tornado watch that continues for parts of Alabama, extreme southwestern Georgia, and across the Florida Panhandle, which does include Panama City, Florida. From our satellite perspective, we are definitely seeing some very deep convection, especially on the east side of the center of circulation. Very heavy rain continues to lift up through Alabama, and that is causing some localized flooding. There's a flood warning right now for Covington County in south central Alabama. Very heavy rains too across the Florida Panhandle. Here too we have numerous flood warnings in effect. We've had some reports the rain coming down at the rate of nearly a half an inch to close to 2 inches of rain per hour. So some very heavy tropical downpours are still producing some copious amounts of rainfall across the southeast. And speaking of rainfall, already we've had some locales reporting over a half a foot of rain, like around the Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. And before it's over and done with, we might very well pick up another 5 to 10 inches of rain in the path of this tropical system. So again, with that in mind, flooding is of utmost concern today, and we have flood watches in effect for parts of Alabama, Georgia, and across northern Florida. As we get away from Barry, though, most of the tropics are remaining relatively quiet. In fact, not a whole lot happening at this time across the Caribbean. Fairly quiet, too, out towards the Atlantic, although we have been tracking a low-pressure system. That's about halfway between Africa and South America. We do see a little twisting motion, but right now very little convection association with that low. And the Hurricane Center is saying that if there's any development, it will be very slow to come by. And yet again, another strong tropical wave just getting ready to emerge off the African shoreline. We'll have to watch these for the potential for some development. Lastly, though, we head over towards the western Pacific, and here we have a typhoon, Typhoon Man-Yi, which is just to the east of Iwo Jima. Right now, it's packing winds of 110 miles per hour. We're expecting still some slow weakening to be taking place over the next couple of days or so. The good news, this typhoon not directly affecting any land areas. Well, now let's switch gears. Let's check out Storm Watch. And we've had some very active weather, too, stateside. In fact, devastating flood damage is what greets people returning to homes in Greene County, Tennessee. Some people, however, are still trapped in their flooded homes. The flooding began last Friday. Water as high as 20 feet washed out bridges and homes. And this flooding was not connected to Barry, but now with that tropical storm headed in that direction, that could add more rain to the already damaged area. Today, there is the possibility for that heavy rain to be spreading in through Alabama and may eventually work its way towards the Mid-South and Tennessee Valley, and we could see some strong thunderstorms too across this area. Again, very heavy rain in its path, perhaps another 6 inches or more rainfall for some locales. All the active weather continues across the southeast, and the rest of the country not too bad in comparison, although the southwest will stay fairly active too, with a threat for some scattered showers and storms with that moist monsoonal flow. From the northeast, lots of fog this morning. That should be burning off and giving way to a hot and hazy day. Again, Tropical Storm Barry, though, still wreaking havoc across the southeast, spreading in the heavier rains over parts of Alabama. Into the Midwest, we've had a few spotty showers and storms. In fact, some thunder showers this hour for Goodland, Kansas, and the active weather across the southwest, rather few and far between, but becoming more numerous, we think, later this afternoon. And now let's check out the forecast for your upcoming weekend. Here's Rick.
Well, there should be a break from the heat and humidity across the upper lakes and the northeast as a series of cold fronts slide on by, but the mugginess will continue over the southern states and the mid-Atlantic. Popcorn thunderstorms are in the forecast. But look at the 70s in the upper Midwest and the 70s and 80s in the northeast, while the typical summertime warmth persists over the south and west Saturday and Sunday.
This first Outlook was sponsored by Audi.
I remember 20 years ago, Audi turned the racing world upside down. First by introducing a race car with quattro all-wheel drive, and second by having a woman driving.
Rain fell, but as you can also see, the seas are not all that heavy out there. Now, small craft advisories are in effect, and small craft are urged not to venture out until the seas recede. There are still windy conditions, although tropical storm warnings have been discontinued along the Gulf Coast. Barry continues to track to the north-northwest. Now, the latest advisory is of 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time. Place the center circulation at 31.6 north and 86.9 west. It's about 55 miles south of Selma, Alabama. It's a rain producer right now, not a real strong wind producer, although Mike Seidel, reporting out of Greenville, Alabama, which is south of Montgomery, has indicated some wind gusts about 50 miles per hour this morning. Now, the movement is at about 13 miles per hour to the north-northwest. There is a tornado watch in effect that extends from southwestern Alabama into the panhandle of Florida. This is typical of landfalling tropical systems because of the veering profile of some of the winds, especially in the east and northeast semicircle here. There's a potential for some rotational thunderstorms to develop, i.e. the thunderstorm watch. Thunderstorm watch and flood watch. Flood watch extends much further to the north and west and will probably be extended into Mississippi over the next 24 hours or so. Flash flood watches toward the Gulf Coast, also in southwestern Georgia. Some of the totals for you this morning: Tyndall Air Force Base checking in with 7 1/3. This is over the last day and a half. 5 inches, Panama City, Tallahassee, about 4.5 inches. And these rainfall totals can become extravagant as this tropical moisture wraps around the system as it heads through Alabama. Valdosta, Georgia, about 2 1/4 inches of rain. The rain continues to be heavy. There's your projected path. Potentially could head toward central Mississippi and potentially north toward Tennessee. We'll take the center of that track, taking it into northern Mississippi over the next couple of days. There it is on your radar. It's pretty well to the north now in southern Alabama. Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea looking just fine. No tropical storm formation likely there. And this area of disturbed weather heading out into the Atlantic, if anything were to develop, it would be very slow to develop. Now, to take a look at the severe weather potential from Tropical Storm Barry, here's Dr. Scala.
And Marshall, what I'm seeing so far, in addition to that significant number that you just mentioned, that 13-mile-per-hour forward speed, is some rain breaking out to the northwest of this system. I think that's a clue as to where this is going to go. Let's look at the radar satellite composite from 6 hours ago. Our tropical storm had made landfall at this point and was starting to track to the north-northwest. We'll put it into motion. You'll see now it's moving into south-central Alabama. It's moved across I-65. Looks to me, based on what we're seeing here with the rainfall breaking out ahead of it here into Mississippi, that it's likely to move more towards a northwesterly track towards Meridian, Mississippi by early this afternoon, and then track into central Mississippi by tonight and by tomorrow morning, perhaps getting into west central Mississippi. It's moving a lot faster, I think, than we had thought earlier, and that will reduce the rainfall amounts, maybe down to, say, in the 4 to 5 inch range than the much larger numbers which are possible. But If it slows down in its forward propagation, we're going to add the rainfall onto it. Now, in terms of a strong to severe thunderstorm potential, there is a band near Tallahassee, and we're going to take a look at that up towards northern Alabama and then back along and just to the east of our storm track. So from Panama City northward into Montgomery and up towards Birmingham, isolated thunderstorms this afternoon with the potential for 1 or 2 tornadoes. That's the primary threat with this particular storm system as it moves off to the northwest. Now for more on what's ahead for you in the nation's forecast, here's Heather.
And we will be watching exactly where Barry tracks to find out where we're going to see some of this rain pressing. So certainly folks in the southeast want to keep an eye to see what's happening here to the Weather Channel. We'll continue to keep you informed about where some of this moisture could be heading over the next few days. And we can monitor the southeast. We know that there will be some areas picking up some significant rainfall with this system. Now, as far as the heat goes, it continues to be very hot for us in the middle of the country from Texas, stretching into the Dakotas, temperatures well into the 90s for many of you, and we are finding that heat also here across the Great Lakes. Here's a little bit of good news is climatologically this is the hottest time of the year for many of you here across the north, so you will start to see some improvement working in as we head through the next several weeks at least. And we are finding here across the northeast 2 very oppressive conditions today, dew points in the 70s, temperatures for many in the upper 80s and low 90s. What about tomorrow? Still very hot conditions, especially in the middle of the country, and we'll continue to see that heat around as we work our way through the week.
Stay with us at the top of the hour. Dr. Steve Lyons will give you a detailed report on Tropical Storm Barry, and Mike Seidel in Greenville, Alabama will report live.
We've got your local forecast coming up next.
Severe weather update. The storm has now passed through the northern section of town. Initial reports indicate hundreds of homes damaged. Authorities are asking for help from surrounding communities. Emergency crews are forming.
Since 1979, our associates have helped hundreds of communities in times of need. Because we know communities aren't made of nails and boards. Communities are people, our neighbors, our friends, and our families.
Can't stand the scorching heat, but you love the outdoors? Slip on the personal cooling system to keep cool and comfortable all summer. A patented design exclusively from Sharper Image, the personal cooling system keeps your body so nice and cool, you might think you're wearing a
The forecast for your area. Expect fair skies Wednesday through Friday with temperatures in the 90s on Wednesday.
Welcome to Storm Watch and the Tropical Update. I'm Bob Stokes. I'll let you know where a tornado watch has been extended time-wise in just a moment. But first, an update on the tropics with our hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons. Steve?
Thanks, Bob. And we have a tropical depression. The final advisory has been written on it. Barry is over land and just producing rain and severe weather. That's the threat for it right now. Let me show you a couple of features here. Climatology first for you tropical cyclone weather enthusiasts. There is, that's Hurricane Bell that moved up and ran over Long Island, New York. You remember what year that was? 1976, and it was on this date that it was forming right to the north and east of the Bahamas. Well, let's go out there and see what we've got for Tropical Depression Barry. Here it is, final advisory, 30 miles per hour, moving north-northwest, and we expect that to turn more toward the west-northwest through time. 15 miles per hour, that fast speed
is really a blessing for a lot of the areas that are under some of the rain associated with it, because that's not going to allow too much flooding, although there is some fairly heavy rain occurring along the Gulf of Mexico. Here you can see the circulation center now just moving to the west of Montgomery here up toward the north-northwest, and then it's going to turn up toward the northwest and west-northwest. Some heavy rain coming into the south, and that's associated with a couple of tornado watch areas, and they've been extended north on the east side of the circulation. Strongest winds are on the east side in thunderstorms, and that's where that's going to be. The west side, winds are rather weak and very little in the way of shower action there with the dry air coming out of the north. We'll continue to monitor this for severe weather potential today, but no longer a tropical cyclone threat. The Gulf of Mexico, a few showers in the western Gulf of Mexico showing here. The Caribbean, very quiet except near the Costa Rica coast, showing no signs of development there. So if you're heading out to the Caribbean, great news there. A couple of tropical waves off of Africa in the central Atlantic. Neither is showing any signs of immediate development, so we're in good shape there. Off the Mexican coast, a few isolated showers, but no tropical cyclone formation. We have to go all the way to the western Pacific to Typhoon Man-Yi, 135-mile-per-hour typhoon, to see one. Let's go back to Bob in the studio now.
Thank you, Dr. Steve Lyons, our hurricane expert. Now, because of the presence of Tropical Depression Barry and daytime heating later, we could see some severe weather in the southeast, and heavy rainfall still remains a big threat. In the southwest, monsoonal moisture bringing perhaps to the mountainous regions some heavy rain with locally heavy thunderstorms. But here's a tornado watch in effect that had been slated to expire at 10 a.m. Central Time, but now it's been extended until 7 p.m. Central Time for much of central and southern Alabama, southwestern Georgia, and parts of the Florida Panhandle due to the presence of Tropical Depression Barry. So please bear that in mind. Otherwise, you can see the wet weather still coming down over Montgomery and the Birmingham area, and the flood watch does remain in effect for a good chunk of Alabama, southwestern Georgia, and the Panhandle of Florida. Your local forecast is ahead.
Ants. They think they can march into your home anytime, and soon they're living La Vida Loca. Call 1-800-TERMINEX and let our convenient outside service stop the bugs. Hasta la vista, ants. For a free inspection, call 1-800-TERMINEX.
Are you tired of shaving your legs every day? Are you tired of painful pulling, plucking, and irritating creams? Then you need the OnLev hair removal system, an amazing breakthrough that not only removes unwanted hair without any pain, but actually helps keep it from growing back. Look, products like wax, sugar, and nads pull your hair. Ouch! Razors cut hair above the root. It grows back faster and thicker. But OnLev is a natural lotion enriched with vitamin E that removes the whole hair, including the root, without any pain. While its amazing hair inhibitor gel slows down hair regrowth and helps keep it from growing back. You'll never have to shave or wax again. And unlike painful wax or nads, OnLev even removes short hair. Even tough body hair is no problem for OnLev. Days later, the side that used OnLev is still smooth. Amazing. In fact, we put it to the ultimate test against sugar, waxing, and shaving and nads. And look, OnLev is faster, easier, and more effective than any of these products.
I used OnLev 2 months ago, and my legs are still smooth. I didn't even have to shave on my vacation.
My girlfriend used to complain about the hair on my back. But now that I use OnLev, there's no pain and it's gone for months.
Use anywhere in your body. At last, you can have the beautiful bikini line without irritation. No ingrown hairs.